Have you ever noticed that the more you try to control your life, the more it slips away from you? It's as if the universe looks at you and says, "Oh, this is how you want to play it? So hold on to this chaos." And that's exactly where most people get stuck, because they spend their lives trying to force things to work, thinking that success, money, and peace come from effort and control. But what if I told you that the true secret to abundance is the opposite, that everything you desire begins to flow precisely when you stop trying to control? This video will change your life. You'll understand why your energy gets stuck when you try to control everything, and how, when you learn to let go, the universe finally cooperates. Alan Watts said that control is the illusion that most holds human beings back. And he was right. The fear of losing control is what keeps you trapped in scarcity. But the good news is that there is a way out, a way to attract prosperity, opportunities, and tranquility without having to constantly struggle. Today I will show you how to stop sabotaging the flow of life, how to align with it, and let abundance come to you naturally, without despair, without anxiety, and without relying on luck. What you'll hear here can completely change the way you deal with money, time, and even people. Stay until the end, because once you understand this, the way you view life will never be the same again. Now you understand why nothing was flowing. Control was wow, keeping you from the abundance that was already ready to arrive. This video opened your eyes to this, and when you apply what you learned here, everything changes. Money starts flowing again, your mind slows down, and life begins to respond in a way that seems magical, but it's just you finally flowing with it. This kind of clarity can't stop with you. Show gratitude for this awakening by liking and subscribing to the channel. This way, you continue receiving content that strengthens your mind and spirit, and even helps others understand what you've just discovered. Have you ever noticed how tired we are constantly trying to control everything? It seems like if you're not paying attention, something will go wrong. Work, money, family, love life. It's as if the world depends on you being in control to keep it from falling apart. And then comes the exhaustion, the anxiety, the lump in your throat that won't let go. You wake up already thinking about the 1,000 things you need to resolve and go to sleep feeling like something's still pending. But the worst part is that, even with control over every detail, things continue to slip away. And that's when you start to ask yourself, why, even though I'm doing everything right, nothing seems to flow? This feeling of always being in control is treacherous because it gives a false sense of security. We think that mastering everything is synonymous with responsibility, when in reality it's just fear in disguise. Fear of loss, fear of failure, fear of not being enough. And it's this fear that steals the lightness of life. You start living more in defense mode than in trust mode. Everything is an effort. Everything is a burden. Even what was supposed to be pleasurable becomes an obligation. Have you ever noticed how people who have more peace are usually not those who control everything, but those who trust more? Seems unfair, right? But there's an explanation for this. When you try to control everything, it's like telling the universe you don't trust it, that you need to interfere with every step because somehow you believe the universe will make mistakes. But life doesn't make mistakes. It has its own rhythm, a timing we don't always understand. And when you get caught up in this desire to control every move, you create resistance. And where there's resistance, there's no flow. That's why so many people live stuck, because they try to push life where it doesn't want to go. And when life resists, the person thinks they're being punished, when in fact they're just being redirected. Think about how many times you've persisted in something that wasn't working, only to realize later that it wasn't for you. It's at that moment that you understand how much control is an illusion. Because while you were trying to hold on tightly to the helm, life was just waiting for you to let go, so it could take you where you really needed to be. Alan Watts said that control is humankind's greatest trap, and that freedom begins the moment we let go of the reins. It's curious how we think letting go is giving up, when in reality it's liberation. Control creates tension, and tension creates scarcity. Have you ever tried to open your hand and hold sand? The more you hold it, the more it escapes. Abundance is like this. The more you try to hold it, the less it remains, because abundance doesn't mix with fear. It appears when you relax, when you trust, when you understand that what is yours doesn't need to be forced. It simply flows to you. But for that it takes courage. Courage to let go. Courage to trust. Courage to admit that control is, in fact, a prison disguised as security. And it's not easy, I know. We grow up hearing that we need to handle everything, be strong, not depend on anyone. But no one talks about the price of that. The price of trying to control everything is too high. It's the peace you lose, the energy that drains, the joy that slowly fades. You start living like a vigilante, over your own life, always on alert, as if any mistake would be the end. And that's when abundance retreats, because it doesn't enter where there's fear. It needs space. It needs trust. It needs breathing space. Have you ever noticed how everything changes when you relax? When you stop chasing and just do what's within your reach, without trying to control the outcome? Suddenly, things fall into place. Work flows. The right people show up. Opportunities arise. It's not magic. It's energy. When you let go of control, your energy shifts. You stop vibrating in fear and start vibrating in trust. And it's at this frequency that abundance thrives. So, I want you to stop for a second and reflect. What are you trying to control right now? What's the area of your life that you just can't let go of? Write the word here in the comments. Flow. To make this commitment to yourself. The commitment to start trusting more and controlling less. This small gesture is already the first step toward moving out of scarcity mode and into abundance mode. And you know what's interesting? When you start letting go, the world seems to cooperate. Answers come. People understand you better, and even the unexpected begins to make sense. It's as if life is saying, finally, you trusted me. And that's when you realize that true strength isn't in holding on to everything, but in allowing things to take their natural course. Because deep down, abundance has never been about having more. It's always been about aligning with the flow of life, the very one you've been trying to control all along. But there's one detail that almost no one notices, and it's precisely this that explains why, even after understanding all of this, many people still can't flow with life. It's something subtle, almost invisible, but it defines who lives in abundance and who remains stuck in scarcity, and that's what we'll talk about next. Have you ever noticed that when life is flowing well, we feel like everything is under control? And that's precisely when the fear of losing that control arises. It's as if deep down you believe that if you let go even a little, everything will fall apart. But it's exactly the opposite. The more you try to hold on, the more things slip away. The second secret to understanding abundance is recognizing that life has a natural movement and that you don't need to fight it. We've been conditioned to believe that only those who control everything, who plan every detail, who force results, achieve success. But what if I told you that true power lies in learning to trust the rhythm of things? Alan Watts compared life to a river. The river doesn't try to run faster, doesn't fight the rocks, or try to change its course. It simply flows, and yet it arrives exactly where it needs to go. This is the logic of the universe. The problem is that we've learned to row against the current, thinking that this guarantees success. But rowing too hard is tiring, and worse, it makes you lose your way. When you stop trying to control every wave, something curious happens. Opportunities begin to appear effortlessly. The right people cross your path, and what seemed impossible begins to happen naturally. It's at this point that life stops being a struggle and becomes a dance. Think about it. How many times have you insisted on something that seemed right, but deep down, you felt it wasn't the right path? Even so, you pushed through. And then, when everything went wrong, you realized life was just trying to push you in another direction. Life talks to us all the time. The problem is when we're obsessed with control, we don't listen. And you know what's worse? We blame ourselves. We think we failed when in reality, we just didn't realize we were swimming against the current. That's why trust is so powerful. Trust isn't giving up. It's understanding that there's something bigger guiding the way, even when you can't see it. You don't need to understand every step, nor predict every outcome. Sometimes what seems like chaos is just life rearranging the pieces to get you where you should have been from the start. Watts said, "Life is like a melody. If you only think about the final note, you lose the whole music." And that's what control does. It makes you live in the future, worried about the outcome, and forget to live in the present, which is the only place where abundance truly happens. Because abundance isn't in what you achieve, it's in how you live. And perhaps this is the greatest challenge, letting go without fear. Understanding that the flow of life doesn't need your strength, only your trust. Abundance doesn't come to those who fight the tide, but to those who learn to dance with it. And this dance, which seems simple, is what transforms everything. Now there's a detail in this movement that almost no one notices, and it explains why so many people understand the theory of flow, but remain stuck in practice. That's what we'll talk about next. It's funny how we talk about letting go, but in practice we're always stuck, right? You understand that controlling everything tires you out, but when you try to let go, that fear creeps in. What if everything goes wrong? What if I lose what I've achieved? This is the point at which almost everyone stops, on the border between trusting and freaking out, because control, in fact, is born of fear. The fear that things will go wrong, that you'll suffer again, that the world won't be on your side. But what if I told you that it's precisely this fear that prevents you from seeing life work out in your favor? The truth is, fear is a mental trap. It makes you believe you need to always be prepared, always alert, always in control. But this leaves you tense, tired, and disconnected from the present. And the ironic thing is that fear doesn't prevent suffering. It only anticipates it. It's like constantly replaying a movie that never happened, but that your mind insists on projecting. Alan Watts said that fear is the ego's desperate attempt to prove it has control over what it can't control, and deep down, that's exactly what it is. Fear makes you believe that control is the only form of security, but it isn't. It's the most disguised prison there is. How many times have you lost sleep trying to predict what would happen? How many conversations have you replayed in your head, imagining every possible scenario, only for nothing to turn out as you imagined? This is how fear works. It convinces you that overthinking is the solution, when in fact it's what keeps you from clarity. When you give in to this cycle, life loses its rhythm. Everything feels heavy, slow, out of place. And the curious thing is that when you finally give up trying to control it, when you get tired of fighting it, things start to work out, because that's when you leave space for the natural flow to take place. The fear of letting go stems from the idea that if you're not in control, something terrible will happen. But look back. How many times has something terrible you so feared ended up leading you to something much better? How many times has a loss shown you what truly matters? Fear isn't the enemy. It's the sign that you're trying to live beyond control. And that's the way. Fear appears when you're about to grow, because growing is letting go of what's already known. It's making room for the new, and the new is always scary. But it's precisely this fear that proves you're evolving. Surrender, then, is not the absence of fear. It's the courage to act even when afraid. It's understanding that life doesn't need your control, only your presence. Watts said that the mind that tries to control life is like a man trying to catch the wind with his hands. And that's right, the more you try to hold on, the more it escapes. But if you open your arms, the wind flows through you, and you feel the movement instead of fighting it. Life works like that. You don't need to understand every detail. You just need to trust that the wind knows where it's taking you. Now think with me. What if the fear you feel every time you try to let go of control is actually a sign that you're very close to something big? Because there comes a moment when fear changes form. It stops being an enemy and becomes a guide. And that's precisely when confidence is born. And it's about this turning point that we're going to talk about now. It's funny how, after you realize that control doesn't work, comes that moment of silence, right? It's when you breathe and realize that maybe the secret is to stop fighting. But then another question arises. But what do I do now? Do I just stand there waiting for things to happen? And this is where many people get lost. Because trusting the flow of life, it is not. Crossing your arms means acting from calm, not despair. It's letting action come from the right place, from the present, and not from fear of what might go wrong. This is where the true power of presence begins. When you're present, everything changes. Things that once seemed urgent lose their weight. Decisions become clearer. You start to notice signs you previously ignored, and suddenly, life seems to cooperate with you. Alan Watts said that life is a dance, and you don't dance trying to get to the end of the song, you dance to feel the rhythm. The problem is that many people live in a rush, trying to get there, without realizing that there never exists. The only real thing is now. And it is in this now that lies the abundance so many people seek in the future. When you anchor yourself in the present Anxiety diminishes because your focus shifts. You no longer try to predict what will happen. You simply react clearly to what is happening. And when you do this, your actions become lighter, more precise. You don't waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable. You simply do what you can today, as best you can, and trust that the rest will fall into place. And it's curious. The more you relax into this state, the more things begin to fall into place almost effortlessly. It's not coincidence, it's coherence. Think about the times you've made hasty decisions driven by fear. How many worked out? Now remember the times you were calm, centered, and did what you felt was right, even without guarantees. Those were the choices that paved the way, weren't they? The difference lies in the energy. When you act in desperation, you create resistance. But when you act in confidence, you align with the flow. It's like swimming with the current. You still move, but the effort is less, and the results come faster. And the most incredible thing is that when you learn to trust and act in this state of presence, life seems to conspire in your favor. Coincidences increase, signs appear, and everything seems to make more sense. But this isn't magic. It's attunement. It's proof that when your mind stops projecting into the future and returns to the present, it aligns with the universe's perfect timing. And that timing never fails. So answer me this. How many times have you missed out on something incredible because you were worried about what might go wrong? How many times have you let the moment slip away trying to anticipate the future? Write your words in the comments below. Now to mark that turning point, the moment you decide to stop living in control and start living in presence. And something powerful begins to happen when you live. In this state, you realize that life doesn't need to be pushed to work, that it has its own rhythm, and when you get into that rhythm, everything falls into place. It's the point where trust becomes natural action, and what once required effort begins to flow with ease. But there's a step beyond this trust, a kind of surrender that completely changes the way you relate to the world, and that's precisely what we'll talk about next. Surrender is the scariest and, at the same time, the most liberating, because it requires you to trust even when you don't understand anything. It's when you look at the chaos and say, "Okay, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust." And that, to many people, sounds like madness. After all, who in their right mind would surrender control and believe everything will work out? But that's precisely where the secret to abundance lies. Surrender isn't giving up, it's wisdom. It's understanding that life knows the way better than your fear. Alan Watts said the universe doesn't need you to be in charge. It just needs you to stop getting in the way. When you let go of control, it's like opening space for something new to happen. Before, you were so busy trying to plan, control, and predict that you didn't let the unexpected surprise you. And the unexpected is precisely where life presents its best opportunities. The problem is, the mind doesn't like that. It wants guarantees, it wants certainty, it wants to know what comes next. But abundance isn't born from control. It's born from trust. You don't plant a seed and dig in the soil every day to see if it's growing. You plant, water, and trust. And life works the same way. Think about how many times something only worked out after you got tired of forcing it. You tried 1,000 different ways and nothing worked. Then one day, you gave up. You took a breath, and out of nowhere, things started moving. This is surrender happening. The moment you stop fighting the flow and let the universe do its part. And the curious thing is that the more you trust, the more life rewards you. It's as if the universe is saying, "Finally, you understand that I've always been taking care of this." Abundance comes when you stop fighting life and start moving with it. And you know what's most beautiful? This surrender changes everything. It transforms the way you work, the way you relate, and even the way you view challenges. Because when you trust, even problems take on new meaning. Instead of despairing, you begin to realize that every obstacle is a test of faith, a way life prepares you for what comes next. Watts said that the universe is a game, and that life plays games by putting you in situations where you have to choose between fear and trust. And every time you choose to trust, the game rewards you with peace, clarity, and direction. Surrender is the opposite of weakness. It's the strength of those who have learned not to depend on the outcome to feel good. It's understanding that you don't control what comes, but you do control how you react. And when the reaction comes from calm, everything falls into place. It's a silent but enormous power. Life becomes lighter, because you stop trying to push things. You begin to realize that what's yours doesn't need to be forced, and what isn't, no matter how painful, goes away to make room for the new. This is true abundance, trusting that when something gets in your way, it's because something greater is coming. Now tell me something. How many times have you looked back and realized that something you thought was a loss was actually a liberation? That what seemed like the end was just the beginning of something better? Write the word here in the comments, trust, to mark this moment. It's your signal that you're ready to let go, to let life show you what it always wanted to give you, but that your fear didn't let you get to. And it's precisely when you understand this that you begin to notice a pattern. Abundance isn't a destination, it's a state. It's not something you achieve when everything goes right. It's the way you choose to live, even when things seem confusing. But there's a powerful shift that happens when you truly surrender, a revelation that completely changes how you see the flow of life. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about now. There comes a time when everything makes sense, when you realize that the true secret to abundance was never in the things you have, but in how much you trust life. It's as if suddenly everything you've learned about effort, control, and worthiness is turned upside down, because you understand that abundance isn't about doing more, but about allow more, allowing good things to come, allowing opportunities to arise, allowing things to flow without forcing them. Most people live trying to dominate life, when in reality life is constantly trying to help them, but it can't because they won't let go. When you let go of control, you finally realize that the universe has always been on your side. It was never against you. It was just waiting for you to stop getting in the way. And that's the most liberating moment of all, because from then on, you understand that everything that happens, the good and the bad, is leading you to a purpose. Alan Watts said that life is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the more it escapes. But when you release your hand, the water remains. And that's what happens with abundance. It doesn't come when you grab. It comes when you trust. And the most incredible thing is that when you reach this state of true surrender, things begin to reorganize themselves in ways that seem unbelievable. Money starts coming from unexpected places. The right people appear. The solutions you've been searching for emerge naturally. But it's not magic. It's coherence. Life begins to reflect your new frequency, because when you live in peace, you attract peace. When you trust, you attract fluidity. And when you let go of fear, abundance feels like it can arrive. It's almost as if the universe says, now you are ready to receive. You begin to realize that you no longer need to chase, beg, force, or prove anything to anyone. Everything that's yours finds you. And not because you're lucky, but because you're in tune. Scarcity disappears when you understand that you lack nothing, that what's meant to be yours is already on its way, and that life's timing is much wiser than yours. This is the turning point. Understanding that control creates resistance, but surrender creates space. And it's in this space that life works. It's there that the universe builds the bridges you couldn't see while trying to control everything. So now I want you to look back at everything you've been through so far and realize how much you've grown. Before, you were always trying to hold the world in your hands. Now, you're beginning to understand that it's always been spinning, even without your control. This awareness is the beginning of a new phase, the phase where you stop surviving and start living, where you stop chasing abundance because you realize it's always been with you, just waiting for the moment you let go of fear to receive it. Now that you understand that control was never the way to go, and that true abundance begins when you trust the flow of life, you can feel something inside you shift. This video showed you how to let go of the weight, make room for the new, and let the universe work in your favor. And when that reality hits you, everything changes. Your energy, your decisions, the way you view time, and even the people around you. This is the kind of transformation that can't stop with you. Like and subscribe to the channel so more people can find this same relief and start flowing with life like you. Write your words in the comments. Flow to affirm that you are ready to live in this frequency of trust and abundance. And now, if you thought this video was an eye-opener, wait for the next one, because it will show you something even deeper about how the universe works when you finally let go of control.